Hi, my name is Danny Costello and this is my presentation CA2 for the Data Warehousing and Business Intelligence module. I'd like to start by describing the data I used for my analysis. It was taxi driver data provided by the New York Taxi and Limousine Commission, also the taxi driver and customer data mocked up from Mockaroo. I have some weather data from AccuWeather, and I also have some Twitter data from Twitter. And this data was analysed from the file structures that was downloaded from the web into SSIS, and in SSIS I used functions similar to this, where you can loop through each file for each month, say for in this instance yellow taxi transactions, pull it into a staging table, clean it up, copy it on, move on to the next file. And there was similar packages used then for drivers, Twitter, and for the weather files as well. So so this pulled the data into the database, and we can see that here on our database model just like this. And these are all our tables, and we can see here that for example, we've got a table full of addresses and credit cards and customers, and this would have been denormalized and pulled into dimension for customers, as well as yellow taxi trips and green taxi trips would have been pulled into a fact table for taxi trips. So this data was denormalized and allowed us then to pull that into SSAS for analysis into Microsoft OLAP Cube, and this is what that cube looks like. You can see here the cube structure is in a kind of snowdrop form, and over here we have all of our dimensions defined, and this was then deployed and made available to packages such as Excel. And you can see here in Excel we have our cube, and over here we have a date and all of the emails for the taxi drivers who drove on that day. And if we wanted to, we can pull down the identification number of those same taxi drivers onto our table, and we can slice and dice the data from the cube very quickly using this tool. We can also expose the data through SSRS, and from here I've created a number of different reports in SSRS, and you can see here a sample report which pulls the taxi trips per day for the month of June last year, and there's the count of trips, and you can see that's graphed out there as well to give you an idea of the abilities of SSRS. So so this brings us back to our actual objects, our case studies, which the first one was to review latitude and longitudes of where a journey started and finished for trips for that month of June in 2004, and we could see that there was an average latitude and longitude given for that month, and we excluded where we didn't have a measure for those, where the values were 0, and this gave us an area just off 42nd Street and 3rd of where the average mean for latitude and longitude were for pickup and drop-offs. But of course this was the average, and I suppose doesn't definitively say that trips started and ended in this area. I suppose for that we need to analyze any clusters of activity in the Manhattan area. So we did this, we took an extract from the database and plugged it into SPSS, and we did a cluster analysis, and we can see here that we got for the main cluster we got coordinates for this location here, 40, -73, etc., which pulls us on the map to pretty much the same location as the averages brought us to. So this kind of backs up the original one to say that if New York Taxi Limousine Commission were to supply facilities to their drivers, this would be a good place to look to provide those services. My second case here was to review a regression analysis of how weather and the number of taxi trips undertaken were in any way correlated. So I took an extract from the data and plugged it into SPSS again and did a regression analysis, And we could see here from the Durbin-Watson number of 0.48 that there wasn't a very strong correlation between the data, which is quite surprising because apparently New Yorkers always complain about no availability of taxis when the weather is bad due to rain or snow. So we can look at here again. There's a very there's a kind of a 0.06, which is higher than 0.05 significance for where we considered rain or snow. So there was no real correlation in our study. And another person called Eric Jeff put some analysis on this, where he explains that some drivers stop. This is not due to their reaching their income targets. Some drivers stop simply because it's less pleasant to drive in the rain and there's no additional benefit in trying to drive. So that's why it's pretty much difficult to find taxis in New York when it's raining.